Today's presentation is titled The Synergistic Solution, Enhancing Visible Light Photocatalysis for Indoor Air Quality and Sustainable Energy Generation. Before no, it doesn't work. No? Oh, now yes, now it's working. Sorry. Okay, so before starting with this presentation, let me just introduce myself and the research group in which I work with. So my name is Stefania Porcu, as been already presented, and I work in the TREETOP research group of the University of Cagliari. So as you can see from this picture, it's a beautiful city near the sea. And so just to let you know what are our topics for research, we work with applied spectroscopy for cultural heritage detection of drugs and viruses. We work with the synthesis and characterization of phosphors and carbon dots for optoelectronic devices, and even in the substitution of critical raw material and nanosynthesis, nano-sized metal oxide and hybrid materials for photocatalytic application, which will be the topic of today's presentation. Let me start talking about air pollution, because you know that nowadays it's a very common issue. So everyone knows that air pollution exists both inside our homes and outdoors, and unlike outdoor pollution, indoor is not always might not be always apparent. So the fight against air pollution requires a multifaceted approach that involves various strategies, as you can see from the graph in the screen. So the number of papers published by year regarding or containing the word air pollution is continuously increasing, and research on ways to reduce air pollution is becoming increasingly important in the scientific community. So among the well-known strategies for combating air pollution, we can mention some of them, like mechanical filtration, the use of activated carbon, the ionization, the use of UV light, or the ozonolysis. But there is also a technology that is becoming very interesting, that is called photocatalysis. Let me just introduce what photocatalysis is. It's a process that when a material called photocatalyst interacts with the light, it can activate an oxidize or reduction reaction to transform pollutants, to break down pollutants into harmless substances. And the application field of this technology is very wide and goes from water splitting, degradation of pollutants, CO2 reduction to energy fuels, selective organic transformation, and bacterial disinfection, and so on. For this application, there are a class of materials that are mainly metal oxide, semiconductor materials that are used for the photocatalytic process. But so as every material we study, we use they have good characteristics and not good characteristics, especially for the fact that they cannot absorb visible light. So they only work using UV light, but sometimes using UV light, it can be a problem. But research studies also how to perform this photocatalytic activity, how to improve this the photocatalytic activity of this material. And one of the methods to improve the activity is doping this material. So the doping with pi conjugated polymers has been deeply studied, And graphitic carbon nitride is known as one of the major exponents of this class of polymers for improving the photocatalytic activity of metal oxides. So in our research group, we started to study a new material of this family that was, of which almost nothing was known in literature until 2020, 2019. So this material has been obtained starting from a phenyl substituted triazine that is this monomer highlighted in red in this slide. So what we did was study the polymerization process of this material, and obviously changing one parameter per time, so the temperature, the environment of the polymerization, and so on. What we found studying this material was a very promising polymer, of which I'm going to talk right now, that we obtained by polymerizing the phenyltriazine at 400 degrees under nitrogen environment for only 2 hours. It was a solid state polymerization process. So we deeply characterized this material because I said before was not known in literature. And yes, due to the time for this presentation, I cannot go in deep explaining all the polymerization process or all the materials we studied, but I will focus only in the one we found very interesting for photocatalytic application. We studied this phenyltriazine that we call phenyl carbon nitride from both structural and optical point of view. Here in this slide, I am showing an absorption spectra of this material, and as you can see, the absorption starts more or less from 600 nanometers. That it's very promising for photocatalytic application because it covers a good part of the visible light of the absorption for the visible light. For what concern the X-ray diffraction pattern, is very similar to the one of graphitic carbon nitride, and we can highlight only one peak at 27 degrees that represents the distance among the planes, because it's a graphitic-like material. And we can observe a broad shoulder around 15 degrees that is attributed to the distance among the heptazinic chains. So the band gap for these materials is about around 2 electron volts, and even for this reason, it's a good candidate for photocatalytic application. So what we decided to do was to synthesize and study an hybrid material by capping this polymer with titanium dioxide. So we did it via solvothermal synthesis, starting from the already prepared polymer and growing in the on the surface of the polymer titanium dioxide, starting from titanium tetrachloride. Even for this material, before studying all the possible application, we did all the structural and optical characterization. So first thing we did was the X-ray diffraction analysis that showed us the perfect interaction between the organic and the inorganic part, because as you can see from the black graph, the one on the top, in the X-ray diffraction pattern of the hybrid material, we observe both the contribution of the organic and the inorganic part, meaning that we were able to obtain a hybrid system. And so we continued with all the characterization. From the morphological point of view, we did SAM analysis that showed a spherical-like core shell structure, in which the core is characterized by the organic part, while the shell is characterized by the titanium dioxide. And then we continue with the optical characterization. And so we performed absorption measurements And even in this case, I'm showing you just to understand how, why we found this material very important for photocatalytic application. So the red graph is the absorption spectrum of phenyl carbonitride, the blue one of titanium dioxide. So as you can see, titanium dioxide only absorbs in the UV range of the solar spectrum, while phenyl carbonitride absorbs a very good part of the visible light. And the very interesting issue in this measurement was to find that the absorption spectrum of phenyl carbonitride titanium dioxide appears like the sum of the two building blocks. That is a very good thing for a photocatalytic application. For this material, we also did time-resolved measurements to try to understand which was the charge transfer process between the two parts of the hybrid system, and we were able to confirm that the charge transfer process is occurring because in the time decay, the behavior of the type decay is different from the organic and inorganic part. You can see that in this graph, I don't know why the laser is, but I can indicate to you. So in this graph, the red one represents the decay time of the hybrid system, and it's really slow with respect to the phenyl carbonitride only, meaning that charge transfer process is occurring between the two. And in this case, we can exclude the contribution of titanium dioxide because we are exciting above the band gap of titanium dioxide. So even after a deep study on of this material and all the characterization, both optically and structurally, we decide to apply this material, speaking on photocatalysis, for different applications like dice degradation, Boas-His degradation, hydrogen evolution, virus disinfection, and water purification. Some of these applications have been already studied, and some others are still on ongoing studies in collaboration with other departments. So what I will do now is just a brief excursus on all the application we studied. We started with the degradation of organic pollutants. So what we did was to study the photocatalytic activity of our hybrid system compared to the deeply studied hybrid system, but with graphitic carbonitride, okay? So the other pi-conjugated polymer. And we did it using visible light as irradiating source, not UV, no UV light was included. So we used a white LED for this application. What we observed was that our hybrid material, both for rhodamine B and methylene blue degradation, which were the dyes chosen for this test, showed a very faster degradation process with respect to the hybrid system prepared with graphitic carbonitride, and it's because our material is able to absorb very good the visible light. And so in the second graph shown in the slide, you can see the rate, the constant rate for the degradation process, and even in this case, just to underline how efficient is our material in the photocatalysis when we use white LED for the degradation process. After that, we had to study the recyclability of our catalyst, because you know that is a very important parameter even for the material to be applied more than one time. And what we found was that for 4 cycles, we obtain almost same rate of the degradation, meaning that the photocatalyst can be recycled and reused multiple times, okay? Only washing and drying it, we can reuse the photocatalyst. So after, even in this case, it was just a brief resume of all the results obtained for the degradation of organic dyes. we were able to explain which is degradation process involved, meaning that in our core shell hybrid system, the organic part acts as sensitizer in the photocatalytic process, while the titanium dioxide acts as activator. So what happens is that when the light is absorbed from our organic polymer, the electrons are transferred from the valence band to the conduction band of the organic one, and then to the conduction band of titanium dioxide, and the photocatalytic process starts. Second application we studied for this material was a virus disinfection, always using photocatalysis as a major technology. So what we did was to try to apply it for the disinfection of H1N1 flu virus by mixing 600 PFU, that are the units of virus, with a precise amount of our photocatalyst, and we did multiple tests. So one by the interaction with the light of this system, and one control test was just kept in the dark for being sure that the results came from the photocatalytic process. Then we did a plaque assay using different dilution of the virus and a cell monolayer to test how the virus is infectious for the layer. And even here, after incubation process, we tried to underline the results using crystal violet, that is a dye that allowed us to color the monolayers of the cells, and the results are shown here in the slide. So in the first column, you can see the cell monolayer that we kept as control test without virus and without photocatalyst. Second column was the vitality of the cells when them only interact with the virus, and third column when our photocatalyst is present. So as you can see from this picture, when the photocatalyst is present, we have almost all the cells alive, because each plaque you see in this graph, meaning that the cells being killed from the virus. So looking at these results, we can strongly say that the photocatalyst has a virucidal activity. To confirm our results, we did a TD student test just to see which is the effectiveness of our system, and we did it for all the conditions, both in light, in dark, and with and without the photocatalyst. And even the results obtained from the TD student test highlighted the activity of our photocatalyst for virus disinfection. All these results have been obtained in collaboration with the virology department of the University of Cagliari, and have been published in the paper you can see in the red box on the top of this slide. One more application we studied. So I mentioned indoor air pollution because this is one recent study we are doing on the application of our photocatalyst, and is for combating indoor pollution properly. So first test we did were to simulate an indoor pollution using a sealed box in which we placed two sensors. In one of the box there was the photocatalyst, and in one the photocatalyst was not present. We irradiated with LED light, and so we monitored the presence of the pollutants into the sealed chamber. So what we observed was that in the box, in the second one, in which the photocatalyst was present, we observed the decreasing of the pollutants during the time, while where the photocatalyst was not present, the amount of the pollutants remained the same for all the time of the experiment. So we decided to go in deep with this study, focusing in particular on smoke indoor pollution. So what we did was to prepare films of our materials, and using an handmade smoke chamber, we smoked the surface of this film. Then we shine the light for different hours in different conditions, and we monitored the experiment through reflectance and colorimetric measurements to see how the degradation of the smoke pollutants occurs. So the results are more or less resumed in this slide. So what you can see from the reflectance measurement shown here in this slide is that when you started the experiment, so the reflectance vector is the one in green, that is called sample in this graph, or even sample in this graph, and that is this one. After the fumigation, the smoke process, so you can see that reflectance spectra changed a lot because of the presence of the carbonaceous residuals from smoke. And then we started to shine light in our film. What happened is that the reflectance measurement changed during the time until when it returns as was before this smoke process, okay? Meaning that all the carbonaceous residuals have been degraded. We studied it even through colorimetric analysis, in which we studied the change in color during the exposure to the light. What we observed was that by analyzing the reflectance spectra on the samples at different time of exposure of LED light, we calculated the CEI LAB color coordinates in the color space. So we were able to obtain the total variation of color that is called delta E during all the intervals of time. And what we found was that the color of our film when we started the experiment and when the experiment was finished was exactly the same, okay? While the color during the photodegradation process changed with respect to the amount of pollutants present on the surface. We followed this study even through Raman measurements. What we did, the experiment we did was exactly the same, but in this case, we observed the variation of the DNG bands attributed to the carbonaceous residuals during the time. In the graph on the right of the slide, you can see how the ratio between these two peaks decreased during the time, highlighting the degradation process. And by fitting this curve, we were even able to calculate the time required for this degradation process, that for these experiments was almost 73 seconds. What I have to say is that Raman analysis is a punctual analysis, so we did the measurements in different parts of the surface, and then we mediate the results, while reflectance measurement is a surface analysis in which you can cover a bigger part of a surface. And due to these very interesting results, we are thinking about applying this material as coating for paints, that because we saw that it remains always active for multiple cycles. And we did a quick test that is now still under study by covering a layer of paint with a coating made with our material. And so we observed that it works for the degradation, even in the case for smoke. As I said before, some of these applications have been already studied, published, and some other are still on ongoing studies, such as the application for water purification. We recently started the studies in collaboration with the Biomedical Department of the University of Cagliari, and we want to test our material for the disinfection of bacteria and virus in the water, thinking maybe on create filters for using cleaning the water. And even we are now studying, we did a couple of tests for the hydrogen production from photocatalytic process using our material, and we are obtaining very good results. We are doing this test in collaboration of the University of Vienna, because we have PhD students that now is student there for 6 or 7 months. Just to conclude this presentation, I can just summarize that we have studied a new hybrid system prepared by coupling an organic polymer with titanium dioxide, and we have applied for in multiple fields. And as perspective, I can say that one very good goal is to optimize the performance of this material for real-world applications. So we will have to study the scalability of the catalyst and for the synthesis and for the application also. And we hope to use this material as practical solution for environmental and health challenges. So I just want to thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions or curiosity, I'm here and happy to answer.